Guitar intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes. This time taking a look at the C major scale, otherwise known as the C Ionian mode, focusing on centering around measuring from the C note located on the 4th string down from the top of the guitar, fret number 5, and this is part number 3. Remembering one of our major objectives is to orientate all of our resources in the same direction, making them as easy on the eyes as possible from the perspective of the player of the guitar, who is of course located behind the guitar. Therefore, for example, my guitar is going to look like I'm playing left-handed, but no, we flipped it around to mirror your perspective from behind your guitar as though you were playing your guitar into a mirror, and as you do so, you're thinking, wow, those are some lovely fingers. I never knew I had such lovely fingers. And we similarly orientated our worksheet in Excel so that this is representing the low or heavy string on our fretboard, top to bottom, left to right, orientated as though we took our guitar and just imprinted those strings on the screen. We're now going to be taking a look at the Ionian mode, which could also, of course, be called the major scale, the C major scale, or Ionian mode, measuring from this C note, looking at all the intervals around that C note. Let's do a quick recap as to why that is going to be an important thing to do. Remembering that when we're learning the guitar, it's often useful to learn in open position and then try to move up the guitar, and I would recommend starting in the middle of the guitar so that you can then naturally grow your shape both up towards the body and back towards the bass, learning the shapes around it. And then, of course, like an Excel spreadsheet, like a beautiful Excel spreadsheet, you can then take that shape and shift it up and down, moving from the C scale and related modes to any of the other major scales and related modes. Now, it's not that easy from a tactile standpoint, because your fingers like to memorize where they are on the fretboard, but conceptually, if you understand that, you can train your fingers a lot more easily. So we're going to be learning in the middle of the guitar here. As we learn our shape, we can learn the shape either by learning the actual scale shape in the middle of the guitar, which you can base on the caged system if that's one way that you want to see it. In other words, if I moved up the G shape to this shape, I can see my C major chord in a G shape. This looks like a G shape, but it's going to be playing a C chord. So that's one way that you can label, or you might just call it position 1 generically, like many do as well. So if I played from A to A, pentatonic wise, 5 notes, 7 notes would look like that. So that's why I start that most common shape in the middle of the guitar, because it's playing a C major scale, although if we play the start of the shape, it's going to be playing the minor scale. We can also learn this shape by formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, which most people apply to a piano structure, meaning we're usually going to learn the formula on the top 2 strings. Most people do, because you want to learn the notes on the top 2 strings. That's often the most helpful way to learn the notes. People often don't use the formula as well when they're moving from one string to the next string. The other problem with the formula is that many guitar players, at least in my experience, don't really start to really utilize the formula for other modes, right? We learn whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half from the major scale, and we don't really look at it in terms of the Dorian, the Phrygian, which is basically the same shape, just starting from a different perspective. We use it basically kind of just to memorize the notes on the top 2 strings. So I might get into a worksheet on that and like how we can use that formula more constructively, even though we're not in just a linear thing, but we have the stacked strings on top of them, which are kind of like stacked pianos on top of each other that we have to kind of deal with here. All right, and then of course we can learn this with the intervals, and that's what we're working on here. Now, learning with the intervals is going to be useful because that allows us to build chord constructions pretty easily by the intervals. Most people learn chords in open position, then they learn bar chords, which is a form of caged learning system. Usually the bar chords that we think about, or the part of the cage system we used most often, are going to be the E shapes, E major, E minor bar chord shapes from the top string, and A major and A minor bar chord shapes from the A string, from the second string down. But we often don't really think about building shapes from the notes on the bottom of the guitar unless that's the kind of thing that you've learned as you're playing in a band, because it might be an easier thing to do, right? So what we want to do is try to say, how can I build the notes from the bottom of the guitar too, so I can come up with like 3-note chords or other types of chords that can fit in if I'm layering things together or playing within a band. One of the problems with that is that if I try to think about this as my root, I usually measure down, right? I usually start my bar chord and try to build it down this way, which is easier to do because the intervals are formatted so that I can count like a 7-note perfect fifth down 7 notes away. But I'd also like to be building from up above it, which means I have to look at the inverse distance if I want to count out the actual interval. So that's something that a lot of people I don't think really understand that well, and it really kind of stops people from learning the shapes more readily on the bottom of the guitar. And what we end up doing instead of learning the intervals is we start to say, well, I know this is just the bottom of the shape, and we start to say that I know the notes. I've memorized the notes on the guitar, and those notes make whatever, a C major chord. But it's a lot less efficient to learn the notes, because you can't move the notes up. Otherwise, you have to memorize all the notes of every kind of chord, right? What we want to do is learn the relative position, which we can learn by shape, or we can learn by interval, which is a form of shape. So that would be better. So I can learn, well, this is the bottom of like the bar shape. And so I can learn it kind of like that. But if I can actually list out the intervals, then I can prove it to myself, and then I can move it up and down the guitar. And even if I don't know exactly what I'm playing, I can at least say this is still whatever, a C chord, a C major chord, if I played like this shape, down here. That's going to be the idea. So we want to learn it in the major scale. I want to learn all these intervals in the major scale, and then I'd like to compare all the other modes. So I can compare all the other modes to the major scale. That's what we do in Western music. We know that the 1, 4, 5 are the major chord constructions. They have a major third to them. The 2, 3, 6, and the 7 have a minor third in them. I would call them all minor chord constructions. The 7, however, also has a flat fifth in it. So that's going to be basically the idea that we want to do. So we want to know the major scale backwards and forwards, because it's going to be our Rosetta Stone that we compare everything else to. So what does it have in it from interval? The other thing, by the way, learning at the bottom of this guitar is that we need to know that this tectonic plate shifts to the right. So all of our shapes are shifted because of that earthquake that took place back at the building of creation of the guitar. So we have to know that, because all of our shape's going to be thrown off. And that's the other thing that we're going to want to learn on the bottom of this guitar as we measure from down here. Okay, so we have a 0-note away perfect first, a 2-note away major second, a 4-note away major third, 5-note away perfect fourth, a 7-note away perfect fifth, a 9-note away major sixth, an 11-note away major 7. If we went to the relative minor mode, which would be the Aeolian mode, the 6th mode, then you would expect all of the majors to flip to minors and the perfects to remain the same. The perfects do remain the same. Almost all the majors flip to minors by flattening them, except for the second, which remains a 2-note away major second. Once we do that, we can compare the other major scales, the 4 and the 5, to the Ionian, which will only have 1 interval difference, and we can compare the minors, the Dorian and the Phrygian, to the minor mode, which will only have 1 interval difference. And that way we can build all of the modes we can by interval. And then the Locrian is a minor mode, so it's kind of like the minor mode, but it has a flat second, so it's like the Phrygian, and it has a funny flat fifth on the Locrian, because it's crazy. All right. So now we're on the perfect fifth. That's where we left off last time. So we're going to be looking for a 7 note away perfect fifth. The fact that it's a perfect fifth means that it's the fifth position in the scale. 7 here representing that it has a distance of 7 notes. The fact that it's an odd number means that it's one of the cool kids to make a chord from, because we skip every other note. We skip those even ones. They're just the odd man out. There's like no evens. In this chord, it was going to be a 1, 3, 5. You don't know how to play soccer or whatever. You don't get picked to be on the team until you pick up your skills. Even I don't know what I'm talking about. So 1, 3, 5, 7, and 7 basically ends it off. So we can say that the fifth is going to be a same name from a position here as well as the chord construction. All right. Also, just remember that the fifth is basically the same interval in the major chords, same in the minor chords. The only one that doesn't have a perfect fifth is the crazy Locrian. That's really important to really emphasize the fifth multiple times, because that means that no matter what note you are playing in the shape, whether it be the major scale or any of the other modes, you can add a fifth to it every time except for one. So that's the Locrian. So you can always add a power chord. You can always add a fifth. So if you're like noodling around and you're like, I don't know I know this note's in my scale, but I want to play like something else with it. Well, you can always add a fifth, right? Unless it's on the B, you're good. Like you're gonna hit a note that at least works 6 out of 7 times. That's why the power chord is ubiquitous and useful that way. But you're playing an ambiguous chord from perspective of major or minor scale, because you're missing the factor, the determining factor, which is the third. All right, so let's go through this. So if I'm on the same string, the fifth is going to be 5 notes up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's about as far as I can reach from this C. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To that F. All right, and so then we can go above. So let's go above it here and look for the fifth above it. Now, when I go above it, if I'm looking for a 7 note away perfect fifth, then I have to look for the inverse distance when I'm going above it, which is 12 minus 7, 7, which is a 5 notes away. 5 note away, which would be a perfect fourth, remembering that the perfects are inverses of each other. The inverse of a major is always a minor. Inverse of a minor is a major. That makes sense. And the perfects are inverses of each other. And the perfect first is its own inverse. It's like it's a kind of obsessed with itself. Okay, it's like a very very narcissistic, I guess, person or interval. So if we go up, it's going to be -5, 6, 7. So if I go up this way, wait a sec. I'm going up this way. This is wrong. I'm looking for that F. That F isn't right. I'm looking for the G, baby. Let's do this again. So it's just going to be 5 distance. 5, boom, right there. All right, so if I go up, we go boom, 5. So if I went from top to the bottom, from G to C, that would be a 5 note away perfect fourth, and therefore from bottom to top would be a 7 note away perfect fifth. Okay, so that means that if I go up one string, the 7 note away perfect fifth will be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string, in which case if I was on the B string, it would be back here because this tectonic plate shifted to the right, which moved the root number, the root. So that means if I go up one string, the 7 note away perfect fifth will be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string, in which case if I go up one string, the 7 note away perfect fifth will be 1 fret back. Okay, so let's say I go up 2 strings. And we're going to say it's going to be up here. So I'm looking for a 7 note away perfect fifth. I have to look for an inverse distance. 12 minus 7 is 5. So -5, -10, -10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Boom. Let's do it here. So it's going to be -5, -10, and then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. There's the G, baby. So top to bottom would be a 7 note, would be top to bottom would be a 5 note away perfect fourth. But bottom to top, therefore, would be a 7 note away perfect fifth. So that means if I go up 2 strings to 7 note away perfect fifth, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the top bottom 2 strings, the B and the E string. So here's, if I was here and I went up, then it's actually going to be closer of a distance because the tonic got shifted to the right. So rule is, if I go up 2 strings to 7 note away perfect fifth, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the E string, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, 7 note away perfect fifth is 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward in that case. All right, let's go to the top string. Top string. By the way, you might say, hey, look, I'm closer to the bottom string now. So maybe it would be easier for me to look at the distance down here, which would then be the same as the top string. And that way I wouldn't have to look at the inverse distance. I can just look at 7 notes away instead of 5 notes away. So you might say, I have to cross the fault line, which would be this way, 5, and then 10, and then 10, 9, 8, 7. So there it is here. If it's on the bottom string here, it's also on the top string. Same. Or I can count up the other way, in which case if I go above this note, looking for the 7 note away perfect fifth, I have to take the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 7, which has a distance of 5. So it'd be -5, -10, -15. There's only 12 notes in the alphabet. 12 minus 15 is going to be 3. So -3, and then 4, 5. So we can count it out that way. So I'm going to say this is going to be 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 4, 5. Boom. Top to bottom would be a 5 note away perfect fourth. Therefore, bottom to top would be a 7 note away perfect fifth. All right. Let's say, so that means that if I go up 3 strings, the 7 note away perfect fifth will be 2 frets back unless I'm on the bottom 2 strings, the B or the E string. In which case, like if I was on this C and I went up 3 strings, then I would be back here, which would be a longer distance because this tectonic plate shifted to the right, pushing the tonic to the right. So that means if I go up 2 strings to 7 note away perfect fifth, if I go up 3 strings, the 7 note away perfect fifth will be 2 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the B or the E string, in which case if I went up 3 strings and crossed the fault line, the 7 note away perfect fifth would be 1, 2, 3 frets back. Okay, so let's go down underneath. Now this, when I go underneath here, then I don't have to take the inverse distance. I can look for just 7 notes away instead of 5 notes away. And but I'm going to cross the fault line. This is the only time if I go down 1 string that I cross the fault line, because this is the tectonic plate that shifted to the right. So we're living here. We're living just like I am. I'm like right on top of like the San Andreas fault. It's like, you're crazy. I'm going to fall in. You know you're going to fall in, but you just sit here anyways because I'm not that, apparently not that bright, you know. Yeah, it's probably going to shift again. Okay, the whole thing's gonna fall into the ocean. The whole California's gonna fall into the ocean. You're like, dude, I thought there were no more floods happening, and it's like, well, no, a flood is when the water rises. What we did is this time is we dunked you under, and it's totally different. Totally, dude, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was legal. Anyways, if I go down one, we're going to go here. So it's going to be, so we cross the fault line. So it's going to be 5 going this way and then 6, 7. So we're going to say it's going to be here going this way, 5 and then 6, 7. Boom. So that shape should look kind of familiar. It's like a power chord shape, but it got pushed up because the fault line got pushed up here, which is the only time it would be pushed up. Because even if I was down here on this continent, then it wouldn't get pushed up. And if I was up here, it wouldn't get pushed up. That's my normal shape. So normally, if I go down one string, the 7-note away perfect fifth has that familiar power chord of it being up 2 frets. Unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string, in which case, if I go down one string and cross the fault line, the 7-note away perfect fifth would be 3 frets forward. Okay. What if I went down 2 frets? What if I went down 2 frets? I will tell you what if. Now we're on this one, which we looked at a little bit when we went to the top one. So I'm going to go down 2 frets and cross the fault line. So it's going to be, I'm looking for a 7-note away perfect fifth, which would be diagonal 7 notes or 5 notes because of the fault line. 5, 10, 9, 8, 7. So it's going to be here. 5, 10, 9, 8, 7. Boom, boom. Okay, so that means, so it's right there. So that means if I go down 2 strings and cross the fault line, 7-note away perfect fifth is 2 frets back. But I wouldn't cross the fault line if I started on either the E or the A, the top E, the one on the top of the guitar, E or A. So if I went from like this C to like this G, then that would be the normal shape. And that shape, people are less familiar with it, but it's the G shape, right? Here's the C, G shape right there, right? A G would look like this. And then if you had it up here, but then you like barred it, you know, but then you like barred it, then it would be something, you know, like that. All right. Anyway, so that's actually a useful shape to know. But there's the third right there. But the idea is that normally, like if I went down 2 strings, the 7-note away perfect fifth would be 1, 2, 3 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on either the D or the G string, in which case if I go down 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 7-note away perfect fifth is only 2 frets back. All right. Before we go to the next one, I'll tell a quick joke. This is a dumb joke here. You know, those dang Europeans, the Europeans need to get it together, man. The Europeans need to get it together. They happen to be the ground on which the prosperous seed of classical liberal values grew, spreading to the entire world, you know, adding prosperity and whatnot. And I'm for one, and getting sick and tired of watching those dang Euros these days peeing on their own God-given natural rights over there. Getting tired of watching the Euros peeing on their God-given natural rights. It's crazy. Free speech is not a crime, dang it. Free speech is not a crime, honestly. Natural law is like the English language these days, you know? It came from England, but it seems like most of the country can no longer bloody well speak it properly. It's ridiculous. That's right. I said bloody on the air. Don't try coming across the pond to arrest me. Bloody's not even a bad word over here in America. Tell you what, I'll say it all I want. And it's like, come on, Europe, pull it together. We need you culturally sophisticated chaps to represent the classical liberal principles that made you, and by extension us, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous. Okay, that's my rant. I don't know if I know what I'm talking about. I'm a stupid American, but let's see what we got over here. Let's go to the next one down. We're going to go then to the 6th. And so, okay. So now we're on the 9-note away major 6. 9-note away major 6. Now, if I look at that from a chord construction standpoint, it's not going to be called a 6. Why? Because we only, when we're in chord mode, we don't deal with even numbers. So it goes 1, 3, 5, 7. That's the last one that we pick up. And then we rename the 2 to the 9. We rename the 4 to the 11. And then the 6 is now the 13. You're no longer 6. You're lucky number 13, baby. That's what you are now. It's like, okay. So now we have to think about it in two ways. It could be a 9-note away major 6 or a 9-note away major 13. And the sixth, this 6 represents the 6th position. The 9 represents how many notes away from the root, in this case, the C, that we are going. Okay. So if I went to the right, I'd look for 9 notes away. That's too far to reach. So I'd like to look for the inverse distance on the same string. So 12 minus 9, the inverse of a major is a minor. So it's 3, which would be a minor third distance. So if I go 3 notes back, because if I bend this string into a circle, I can go one way around the circle or the other way around the circle. And I was like, going to the right is too far of a distance. I don't feel like going that far. I'm tired, okay? So what I'll do is I'll go around the other side of the circle to get to the same spot, which is 3 frets back. So you get too smart, you get fat, because then you start thinking of ways not to go as far. I realized I don't have to run all day. I can go around the other side of the circle. Why would I? Okay, so if I go from the A to the C, that would therefore be a 3-note away minor third, and the inverse from C to A would be a 9-note away major 6. 9-note away major 6. Okay, so then if we go above it, then up to here. So now I'm going above it. I'm looking for the inverse distance. So if it's a 9-note away major 6, 12 minus 9 is a distance of 3. So it's going to be then -5 and then 4, 3. If I count it out from here, it's going to be -5 and then 4, 3. So if I went from this A to that C, that should be a familiar shape, because that would be a 3-note, 3-note away minor third. And if I go from the bottom to the top, then that's going to therefore be the inverse distance of a 5-note away major 6. That means that if I go up one string, and by the way, if you look at that shape, notice it's kind of like looking at one of those pictures, like where it looks like an old lady, or it looks like a witch, depending on how you see it, right? It switches back and forth. You have to, the intervals are that way as well. And we want the ability to be able to change our mind to see the picture from both perspectives, because that's highly useful. Like if I can see that going from A to C is a minor third distance, that's great when I'm trying to build something off of the A. But it's also quite useful to see that if I look at this shape going from the C to the A, that it's a 9-note away major 6. Because if I'm trying to build something from the C, or look at it from that perspective, because possibly I'm in a C major, or I'm trying to build some kind of C chord, that's the way you want to see it, right? So we have to kind of be able to switch our mind back and forth. That's what I'm kind of working on. That's my suggestion about things. So if I go up one string, the 9-note away major 6 is 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen only on the B string. So if I go up one string from there, it would be here. It's lesser distance because the tonic got pushed forward. So the rule is, if I go up one string, the 9-note away major 6, which also could be called the 9-note away major 13, would be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string, in which case, if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, is only 1 fret forward. All right, so then let's go 2 strings up, 2 strings up. It's like 2 thumbs up, but it's 2 strings up. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. So if I count that up, it's going to be negative. I'm looking for the 9-note away major 6 or 9-note away major 13, which needs an inverse distance if I go above it. So 12 minus 9 is a distance of 3. So it's going to be -5, -10, and then -11, 12, octave, 12, or 0, and then 1, 2, 3. So then I'm going to do it from here. So I could say this is going to be -5, -10, and then -11, 12, or 0, right? And 1, 2, 3. Or 12 or 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, I think I got that. So then if I go from this A to the open A to the C, that would be a 3-note away minor third. And if I go then from the bottom to the top, that therefore would be a 9-note away major 6. All right, makes perfect sense. So that means if I go up 2 strings, the 9-note away major 6 is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, the B or the E string, in which case if I was like on this C right here and I went up 2 strings, it would be way back here, a further distance because this plate pushed the tonic further to the right and I'm leaning backwards, which means it's a further distance. So the rule is if I go up 2 strings, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the bottom E string, bottom of the guitar that is, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, will be 6 frets back, basically just out of reach, which also means it's going to be 6 frets forward because that's going to be right in the middle, creating an equilateral triangle. I think that's what it's called. I say it all the time, so hopefully I'm saying it right. Otherwise, I'm saying it wrong a bunch of times, and I'm going to memorize it stupidly. I'm going to memorize it wrongly. You know, one time I was working in an accounting office and I was like, and we were talking about the old days before everything was on the computers. And I was talking about a manila folder and I kept calling it a vanilla folder. And I seriously thought, even after college, that it was called a vanilla folder because it looks vanilla colored to me. And this Asian lady that doesn't even speak English was like, is it really called vanilla? I call it, I thought it was called manila. And I was like, oh no, the Asian lady's almost certainly correct. She's a genius. And so I tried to play it off before the supervisor heard about it and laughed at me, but it was too late. He's like, you call it, no, it is manila. And I was like, oh man, but manila folder. What does that even mean, dude? What does it even mean? It looks vanilla colored, you know? Makes perfect sense to call it whatever. Let's go up 3 strings. So we're going to say we go up 3 strings. This is going to be, I'm looking for a 9-note away major 6, which has a distance of 12 minus 9 or 3. So it's going to be 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, so there it is. Let's count it up this way. So it's going to be 5, 10, 15, and then 15 minus 12 is 3. So if I went from top to bottom, it would be a 3-note away minor third, bottom to top, therefore is the inverse of a 9-note away major 6 or 9-note away major 13. Therefore, if I go up 3 strings, the 9-note away major 6 or 9-note away major 13 is going to be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, like here, for example. So if I went up 3 from there, it would be right there. So the rule is, if I go up 3 strings, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13. It's going to be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, the E and the low or bottom, the bottom E string, in which case if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, will be 1 fret back. Okay then, let's say we go down 1 string. Now, when I go down a string from here, I'm right on the tectonic plate, just like I am here. We're going to fall right into the crack, but not yet. That's going to happen in due time. Right now, I'm sitting happy. I'm sitting pretty at this point. but I have to remember that I have to go a little bit further to the coffee shop, because the coffee shop tectonic plate shifted to the right here, right underneath. So if I'm looking for a 9-note away major 6, I no longer then I no longer have to take the inverse distance. I could just say this is going to be 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9. Boom. So I'm going to say this is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right there. So that means that if I go down one string and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward. But usually I wouldn't cross the fault line, because even if I was on like this plate, this continent down here, I wouldn't cross the fault line. And if I was on any other string up here, I wouldn't cross the fault line. I'm just happen to be living on the fault line because you're not very smart. I don't even have earthquake insurance. I'm like living in California, like the typical Californian, living in a fire zone with no fire insurance, living in an earthquake zone, ready to fall into the hole with no earthquake. And, you know, it's just whatever, dude. It's the weather's nice. The weather's nice, you know. What do you want from me? But the general idea is that if you go down, if you go down one string, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward, unless you cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string. In which case, if you go down one string and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward. All right then. One more time, one more round. I didn't hear no bell. My mouth isn't watering yet because I didn't hear a bell. And bells when food happens. I could still work. As long as my mouth's not watering, then I can still work. I don't stop until my mouth's watering, and my mouth don't water until I hear a bell. Dang it. Okay. Let's say we go down 2 strings. This is going to be 5 going this way, and then 10, and then we go back to 9. So if we do that from here, it's going to be 5 going this way, 10, back to 9, 9-note away major 6. Okay, so that means if I go down 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, is on the same fret. But I wouldn't cross the fault line on the top 2 strings, the E and the A string here. Por ejemplo, if I go into this one and I went down 2 strings, I would be here. So normally, if I go down 2 strings, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, would be 1 fret back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the D and the G string, in which case, if I went down 2 strings and crossed the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, which could also be called the 9-note away major 13, would be on the same fret. All right, let's go into a quick joke before doing the next one here. This one needs work. I feel like I need to trim it. I need to do something to it, but it's in here. Here it is, anyways. It's been tough teaching these days. It's been tough growing my teaching business, you know, because of the fact that my producer keeps being like, my producer keeps telling people, you know, calling that big dumb hairy ox like dude smart is stupid, right? Calling him smart is the definition of an oxymoron. But I'll have you know, I'm smarter than the average ox. In fact, I feel like I'm at least at the top quartile of the ox intelligentsia, you know? I mean, how many oxes do you know can groom their stomach hair in such a way that it looks like a 6-pack? How many oxes you seen been able to do that? I don't think so, huh? So I'm not an oxymoron. If anything, I'm an oxy genius. I'm like in the top quartile of the oxes. I'm not an oxymoron. I just happen to be a little hairy, okay? And I'm not an ox or a moron, now that I think about it. Anyway, I don't know. There's got to be, I need to wordsmith that one. We need the joke doctor over here. I've fixed that one up or something. Anyways, let's go down to the last one. One more round. I still feel like it has potential though, if I fixed it up right. But whatever. Now I'm on the 11 note away major 7. 11 note away major 7. So the fact that it has a 7 over, the 7 over here is the 7th position. The 11 is how many notes away it is from the root, in this case that being the C. From a chord construction standpoint, it's got the same name because it's an odd, and we skip every other note when we build chords. So we've got the 1, 3, 5, and then 7. So it's not part of the top 3. It's not part of the super cool crowd, but it's still like doesn't have to change its name in order to fit in. It's still like they could still hang out with the 7 without changing the 7's name. And so there we have that. Now the 7's going to be important because this is a distinguishing factor between like a bluesy thing and a major scale. So I always kind of want to point that out when we get to like the 7 and the 3rd are kind of key components if you want to kind of blur the lines between a major and a minor, which you can do on the major modes, meaning you can kind of do it on the Ionian that we're working on, but also the Mixolydian is also a major mode. So you can think of like the Mixolydian as the blues mode, but you can also think of the major scale as kind of like a blues thing and then tweak it to be more like the Mixolydian. And you can kind of do the same thing with the Lydian, although I haven't really played with that as much because it's got that weird interval with the augmented fourth. So I don't think people really normally think about it that way. But you could basically take that one as well, which also has an 11 note away major 7, and then kind of just tweak it so that the reason I point that out is because you can kind of think then of as you play this shape, that gives you the ability to play like the blues in a bluesy progression in G by messing and playing with the 7 in a Mixolydian mode. It allows you to play a bluesy progression in C major by toying with the 7, for example, in an Ionian, and it allows you to play kind of a major bluesy thing with the G and the C mainly. And then you can also take the minor modes and kind of tweak them as well. So the A minor, it's a little bit more difficult to tweak like a minor into a major blues, right? It's kind of a little bit like you can kind of tweak the 7, like the Aeolian, a minor scale is going to have a flat 7 or a minor 7. So you could kind of play with that as a leading note, adding the major 7 as you go back home to the tonic in a minor scale. So you can kind of do that, but you can't really mess with the 3rd quite as easily because it'll sound more like a major blues. Anyway, so on the C, like if you're playing the C here on this 7, you can just say here's where the 7 is. If I want to convert this and make it more bluesy sounding, you can tweak it back to the minor 7. So if I'm in the key of C and I want to, like if I'm on this 7, like if I'm on this C, I have my normal pentatonic. Many people see it this way, right? I have my pentatonic shape, and then I can kind of I can pull this back to a flat 7 here back to here. Okay, so we'll just keep that in mind. All right, so that means that I'm looking for an 11 note away major 7. That's too far up on the same string, so I look for the inverse distance, wrapping this string into a circle. I'm not going to go 11 frets up one way. Instead, I'm going to say 12 minus 11, which is 1 fret back to this B. So I could just go 1 fret back. So if I'm on this C, I go 1 fret back. If I went from the B to the C, the inverse distance would be a 1 note away, which would be a minor 2nd, kind of a funny interval. If I go back the other way, from C to B, that's going to be an 11 note away major 7. That's the leading tone. So when I'm in a major scale, you often end it by leading in. And you can kind of add that to anything you're playing. Even if you're playing like an Aeolian in a minor scale, you can add that leading tone to go home, because it's a half step away, and go home. And then here's the minor, and remember that the minor then 7 would be here. So if you were going to blur it, if you're going to blur it out and if you wanted to make the C major into a bluesy thing, which basically is kind of making it more like a mixolydian, which has the one interval difference of a flat 7, you can kind of add, instead of using that one, you can use this one. Whoops. Or you can, so that sounds possibly familiar. Right, you can add both of them. You can kind of blur them together. All right, it's wonky, but the wonk is fine as long as it's structurally sound. The wonkier the better, as long as it doesn't fall on your head. It's cool until it falls on your head. I like a wonky cabin until it falls on my head. It looks cool as long as it's structurally sound. All right, let's go. If I go up one, we're going to look for an 11 note away major 7. So I look for the inverse distance because I'm going above it, which would be 12 minus 11 or 1 note away. And so it'd be -5, -4, 3, 2, 1. Boom, B, baby. Boom, B, baby. This is going to be -5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if I went from top to bottom, that would be a 1 note away, which would be a minor 2nd. Bottom to top, therefore, is the 11 note away major 7. Where would be the minor 7 or flat 7? Right behind it, because it would be flattened. So from a bluesy standpoint, you can say, well, I would flatten that to get the minor 7. And then I can blur it. Right. Anyway, let's go up. Oh, so that means that if I go up 1 string, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string. So if I was on the B string, we would be here. It would be closer distance because this tectonic plate would shift inwards. So the rule is if I go up 1 string, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets up unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string, in which case if I went up 1 string and crossed the fault line, the 11 note away major 7 will only be 3 frets forward. Let's go up 2 strings and see what happens when we do that. So we have a G up here, baby. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward. So let's count that out. That's going to be -5, -10. I'm looking for 1 note away, inverse distance of an 11 note away major 7. 12 minus 11 is 1. So 5, -10, and then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. What happened? Que paso? That's not the right note. You idiot. What are you doing? Let's go back to here. That's the one I was looking for. Try it again. 11 note distance, inverse 12 minus 11 is 1. -5, -10, and then 11, 12, or 0, and 1. All right. Pull it together. It's been running. This is a long one because I had to go through 3 of them here. So it's going to be -5, -10, 10, and then 11, 12, or 0, and then 1. So if I went from top to bottom, that would be a 1 note away minor 2nd, bottom to top. Therefore, would be an 11 note away major 7. So if I go up 2 strings, the 11 note, and then where's the minor 7? It would be right behind it, flattening it. So. Okay, and then here's your tonic right there, right? So you got that. So the minor, major, leading tone, home. Anyway, so that means, once again, if I go up 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings. The B and the E string, so if I was on this C, por ejemplo, and I went up 2 strings, then I would be back to this B. So that means it would be a longer distance because this fault line shifted forward. So the rule is if I go up 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the B or the E string, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3 frets back, baby. All right, let's go down, let's go to the next one. Otra vez, looking for the 11 note away major 7. It has an inverse distance because I'm going above it, which is going to be 12 minus 11, distance of 1 note away. -5, -10, -15. There's only 12 notes. 15 minus 12 is -3, 2, 1. B, baby. So this is going to be -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is 3. 3, 2, 1. There's the B, baby. So top to bottom is a 1 note away minor 2nd. Bottom to top, therefore, is an 11 note away major 7. So if I go up 3 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is 2 frets forward, unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the E string. So if I was on the C, for example, would be 3 frets forward, be right there. So rule is, if I go up 3 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is going to be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings on the guitar, the B and the E string, in which case, if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 11 note away major 7 will only be 1 fret forward. Let's go down a fret. I'm living on the fault line, living on the edge. He's living on the edge. So that's okay. That's how I do things. That's how I do it. Why? Because you're brave? No, I'm more stupid. It's more of a stupid thing, to be honest. But I feel like the edge won't fall over for a while. So let's go. Look, now I look for an 11 note distance. So it's going to be -5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then, or 12. And then back 1, 12 minus 1 is 11. So let's go from here. It's going to be -5, boom, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, or 12. 12 minus 1 is 11. So boom, to the open C to the open B is 11 note away major 7. We can't flatten that one because we hit the nut. Can't go back any further than that. So that means that if I go down 1 string, the 11 note away major 7, if I go down 1 string and across the fault line, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. But normally I wouldn't cross the fault line. Even if I was on this tectonic plate down here, even if I was on this continent, then it would be on the same, it would still be here. And if I was up on this continent, on the big mainland, then it would be back to here. So the rule is, if I go down 1 string, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string, in which case if I go down 1 string, then the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. Normally it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait a sec. Hold on. I messed up. I messed everyone up. I'm getting tired. Que paso? Everything has just fallen apart for a second here. Okay, I fixed it. So the rule is, if I go down 1 string, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frets back, which means it's right in the middle, would also be 6 frets forward, equilateral triangle, unless I cross the fault line, in which case, gratefully, if I go down 1 string and cross the fault line, the 11 note away major 7 will only be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. All right. Hopefully I didn't thoroughly confuse anyone on that one, except myself. I think I thoroughly confused myself, but everyone else is possibly okay. As long as everyone else is okay, then I'm happy. Let's go down 2 strings. We're looking for the 11 note away major 7 and crossing the fault line. So it's going to be 5 going out here, crossing the fault line, 10, and then going up 1 more to 11. So counting that out here, so it's going to be 5, 10, and then 11. So that means if I go down 2 strings, and by the way, where's the flat 7? Right there. So there's our flat 7. And then if I roll up to the tonic. All right, so that means if I go down 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is going to be 2 frets forward. But if I didn't cross the fault line? then it would be up here. I don't know why I have to get all excited. Why are you saying it like that? You don't have to cross the fault line if you don't want to. What if I didn't cross it? Huh? Huh? Well, I'll tell you what would happen then. Like, normally, if you go down 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1 fret forward unless you cross the fault line, which it's your choice. You don't have to get all excited. I'm not forcing you, then, but that would happen if you were on the D or the G string, in which case, if you went down 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 would be 2 frets forward. All right, then maybe I will cross the fault line then. Maybe I will.